Will momtok survive this? I don't know. My name is Brittany. I'm 31 years old. So stupid. Is momtok gonna survive? Hi, welcome back. My name is Brittany. In today's video, I'm going to be recommending books for the cast of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. What is this? What is happening here? So if you're unfamiliar, this is a reality TV show featuring women who are Mormon, one ex-Mormon. They live in Utah, and they actually started doing TikToks together. That was how this kind of came to be. There was originally a group of 4 women who started on TikTok, and they were making videos. They would get together and noticed that they would get more views when they were in each other's videos. And then this just evolved into momtok, like moms making TikToks. And this really blew up because one of them, Taylor, Frankie Paul, had gotten divorced and did a TikTok live about how there was some soft swinging going on in her Mormon groups. And then this just like exploded because Mormons and swinging like doesn't really go together in their religion. So this became really like intense tea to say the least. And then that led to this Hulu show. I don't typically watch reality TV, but I am in deep. I have been sucked in. I don't know how this happened. I just kind of watched it because I had seen enough online and I was curious. And then just like quickly, like I found all the drama super fascinating. It is trashy in the funnest way. Like it's so ridiculous, and I know most of it isn't true, but it was still really fun and really entertaining to watch. And ultimately, I ended up really enjoying it. And while I don't agree with everything that goes on because it's reality TV, I do think it was interesting, and I ended up really liking a lot of the women. So I've been in deep the past week, really. I've been consumed. I've just been all in this. So I thought it would be really fun to recommend books to each of the cast members. If you've watched this, a lot of this hopefully will just be fun and enjoyable for you. And I just also want to say, like, I'm not making fun of these women. I'm not making fun of any Mormons or the Mormon Church by any means. I just think this is a fun idea, and I'm just bringing together my current interest in the show and my love of reading. Because I've got some books that I think these girls would like. Let's just get into it. I got my fake swig soda. And like, let's just chat about some books. Okay, so we're going to start off with Taylor Frankie Paul, who's kind of the OG momtok. And she's the one whose swinger scandal came out. So let's just start there. Origin story. I had a really hard time thinking of what book I would recommend to Taylor. Some of these book recommendations you will see are based on their interests or things that happened in the show. Some of them are just kind of a stretch. But I couldn't really find much that Taylor was interested in hobby-wise other than TikToks and her kids. It looked like on some older videos, like years ago, she really liked going to the gym. But really, like, she just does these dancing TikToks. And I'm like, I don't feel like I know you other than TikTok and, like, you're a mom. So I was trying to think, and the idea came to me to recommend something based on her swinger scandal. And I am going for it. So the book I'm recommending to Taylor is a reverse harem called A Den of Vipers by K.A. Knight. So this is my first reverse harem that I had read a couple years ago. And every so often I go through different phases with my romance books. And this one was just, I think I saw it on TikTok. So like it's all full circle at this point. But this was intense. Is it a literary masterpiece? Absolutely not. It is trash in the best way. It's entertaining. It is sexual, like that's why I picked it up, and it was just different. A reverse harem typically includes one female and multiple male partners. So in this book, our main character, Roxy, is essentially given over to a group of vipers, 4 different men, as kind of payment from her father, who is indebted to this group of vipers. And they're basically like a mafia group of men. They run the city, and so Roxy's given over to them. At first, she's really resistant to the situation, but ends up being attracted to these men, and they all form relationships individually and together. So, Taylor was kind of into that at one point, definitely not to this level, but I feel like she would find this interesting and entertaining and hopefully have a good time. Okay, let's talk about Whitney next. I think Whitney is really fascinating because the show really paints her in one light, but then I watched an interview and I'm like, oh, like, yeah, obviously this is reality TV. Like, we don't know what's going on. So, like, I don't know. But in a lot of scenes throughout the series, she seems to be just kind of at the core, kind of instigating some stuff. And so I had two thoughts for her. One of them is this book called You Will Never Be Me by Jessi Q. Suntano. And this is about mom influencers, which I think is perfect. It's a thriller. I think this is so funny. So the book I'm talking about follows Meredith, who is a huge influencer, and she taught her friend Aspen Palmer, like, tricks of the trade, right? Aspen has become really popular as far as influencers go, and Meredith is now jealous because she's like, I taught you everything I know. Like, how come you're, like, top of the game here, but you learned from me? Like, this should be my job. Like, you're taking all my brand deals, whatever. So Meredith starts stalking Aspen and ends up stealing one of her kids' iPads and starts messing with Aspen's work calendar, like, schedule with her husband. And then she starts going to influencer brand deals and meetings in place of Aspen because Aspen's schedule's all messed up, so she's not where she's supposed to be. Aspen's life now is slowly falling apart, marital problems, like, all the things. But if Aspen doesn't find out who is behind everything, she might just lose it all. But what everyone seems to forget is that Aspen didn't become one of TikTok's biggest momfluencers by being naive. When Meredith suddenly goes missing, Aspen's world is upended and mysterious threats begin to arrive. But she won't let anything get in the way of her perfect life again. I just think this is so insane. So that is one recommendation for Whitney. I think that works because she's on TikTok. She's a mom influencer. She was one of the core women who started MomTok for Utah. And, like, I don't know, is she in her villain era or not? Like, seems like she kind of is, but we will see. My other recommendation for Whitney, though, is multiple times throughout the show, she would be like, I'm sick of the drama. I just want to focus on my family and kids. And then she ends up going to a farm to check out the homesteading lifestyle. And I think that's a really cool idea. I think the idea of a homestead is pretty awesome. I make my own bread, which is about as, like, homemakery as I get. But it does feel really good to, like, make your own stuff, set up your space how you want to, be somewhat self-reliant, and feel good about it. So for Whitney, I found this book called The First Time Homesteaders, A Complete Beginner's Guide to Starting and Loving Your New Homestead. This is by Jessica Sowards, and this is available on Kindle Unlimited. And I just think it looked really interesting. It covered the basics from, like, birds, what kind of, I mean, most people have chicken, but what kind of birds do you want to have? Dairy, prepping your freezer, skills in the kitchen, like, what do you need specifically to have a homestead? And really, like, I feel like homesteading kind of focuses on not only making your own stuff, preserving things as well. So it kind of dives into those things. And I just think it sounds really interesting. Like, I do want to check this book out for myself. So whether Whitney is in her villain era or her homesteading era, I'm here for it. And I hope she enjoys both of these recommendations. Okay, let's talk about Layla. So Layla on the show is early 20s. She's recently divorced, has 2 kids, and is newly single when this is all being filmed. At one point, Whitney has a brand deal with a company for sex toys, and all the women are discussing this. And it is shared that Layla had never experienced female pleasure, even after having children, even after being married. And so all the women are like, oh my God, like we have to talk about this. So I really wanted to lean into that for my book recommendations for Layla. So I have 2 for her. The first one is Come As You Are by Emily Nagasaki. And this is the surprising new science that will transform your sex life. So this is geared towards women and the how and why women's sexuality is the way it is, and how to radically transform your sex life into one filled with confidence and joy. Just knowing my own brain, there's a lot that goes into intimacy, and I think this would be helpful for Layla to read and just explore and learn more about her own body. I have this on my own TBR, and I think it does sound really interesting. I just think learning more about these things can just help your overall enjoyment in intimacy. So I really want Layla to learn and feel confident in that regard. And then my other recommendation would be ACOTAR, A Court of Thorns and Roses. So I feel like men don't understand, but tying these two books together, Emily says that sex for women and intimacy happens within context. Like, we need to feel connected to our partners. We have to feel like we're in a good place, like we're being seen. That's just kind of how women and femininity can be. Like, we just need this like lovey-dovey things to feel safe in the bedroom. Reading, I feel like, has opened up intimacy in a different way for women, because we're able to feel with these characters, we're able to learn with them and be with them, and then that makes intimacy in books even funner. And then sometimes that benefits the partner. So I think ACOTAR in general has kind of been a gateway to reading, but also to just exploring sexuality in that way, because the books have relationships that you're able to explore. So I think for Layla, it would kind of ease in with some fantasy romance, a little bit of sexy time here and there, and then I think it would just kind of, I'm hoping at least, it would just kind of awaken something for her in conjunction with learning about her body from the more serious, nonfiction book. So I hope she enjoys that, and yeah, I'm rooting for her. The next gal I want to talk about is Demi. So this is how insane my research got. I was going through these girls' TikToks, Instagrams, like I was looking on Reddit. I'm like, what can I find out about these women to give them meaningful recommendations? I found on Demi's Instagram that she had visited a place in Alaska that I have also been to, and I thought that was really neat. I thought that was cool. I'm like, oh, did we just become best friends? Like, I'm from Alaska, you've been to Alaska, like, I think she seems cool. So I wanted to recommend her an Alaska-based book, and that would be The Great Alone by Kristen Hanna. So this book takes place in a fictional town across the Spit in Homer, which is like a couple hours from where I live. And it takes place, I think, in the 60s or 70s, 1974, and the Albright family is in crisis. This is about domestic violence and what living in an isolated place can do. Our main character is Lenny. We meet her when she's 13 years old, and her dad is suffering from war trauma and kind of has this grand scheme of moving to Alaska, starting new, homesteading, like we don't need the man telling us what to do. And they move to this isolated remote place across the bay in Homer. If you are unfamiliar, Alaska winters can be very challenging. And even now with all our technology and resources, they are challenging, not only from a weather point of view, but if you are reliant on the land, you do have to plan accordingly to get a ton of snow. You have to preserve your food, stay warm. I mean, you can freeze to death here. Like, it's not an easy place to live, especially in the 1970s. Like, it's very challenging. And then you add in the seasonal depression that hits and can hit some people hard. Like, this is a challenging place to live in the winter. I just want to emphasize that, because this is not a good place for someone like Lenny's dad to be living in. You see his baseline semi-unstable mental health get worse as the winter progresses, and it is tragic. The relationship between her father and her mom, what these women go through, not only just inside the home, but outside the home, just what living in Alaska can look like. It's just such an incredible book. And the writing is stunning. I mean, Kristen Hanna always has beautiful writing, but she also just highlights some really beautiful things about Alaska. And I think it's super cool because Kristen Hanna also has been to Alaska. So, like, she knows what she's talking about. Alaska isn't about who you were when you headed this way. It's about who you become. Like, I don't know. I went back and forth for Demi. I felt like she would have really enjoyed a thriller. But when I saw she went to Alaska, I was like, I have to recommend her this book. Like, she was literally right here in this place. So, Demi, I hope you love this book. And come back to Alaska. Okay, next up, let's chat about Mayci. So Mayci, I feel like, is everyone's favorite. I do enjoy her. I think she's sweet. She tries to stay pretty neutral in disagreements. Her backstory is pretty interesting. I haven't gotten into all of it, but there's a lot she's been through that wasn't on the show, as far as her children, her previous husband, her time at college. Like, there's a lot that kind of just got missed. And so I started watching some interviews, trying to just find like what else I could connect with her on to recommend a book, because she was kind of similar to Taylor in that I knew she had children and made these TikToks, but like I didn't know what to recommend her until I watched an interview where she talked about her time at BYU and how she was a D1 tennis player. And like, bing, like I got it. I have the book and I was so excited to learn that about her. Let me grab it. For Mayci, I want to recommend Carrie Soto is back. Like, are you kidding me? This is a perfect book for her. I was so happy when I thought of this. This book by Taylor Jenkins Reid is about Carrie Soto. And Carrie Soto is like the best of the best as far as tennis players go. She has since retired, but comes out of retirement when Nikki Chan is about to take her title as the best. And I did not think I was really a sports story girl. I've played sports throughout the years, but like I was never like into sports in that way. I don't even really watch sports at all as an adult. But the way the story is told was so engaging. When I finished the book, I just was disappointed I could not watch the match between Carrie and Nikki Chan. Like, that's how well I feel like it was told. I listened to the audiobook, which I also recommend, and it was a phenomenal listen. The main character, who is Carrie, really embodies that. The relationship between Carrie and her father is also something absolutely gorgeous to look at. And Carrie is problematic because she's so determined. A lot of people think she's maybe cold and too determined and kind of bitchy, but she has so much dedication, so much perseverance. Like, she is going to be the best tennis player ever. And I think her journey is incredible. I'm fairly certain Mayci was unable to finish her tennis career, unfortunately, due to some life circumstances, but I hope at least she would enjoy being back on the court with Carrie and play some tennis again. Okay, let's chat about Jen Affleck for a second. So, Jen, if you watched the show, we all saw the Chippendales incident. We all saw how Vegas went down. I have my own personal thoughts about that. I just hope whichever way Jen goes, she is happy and like strong in herself. Whether her and Zach have actually split up, I feel like there's a bunch of rumors of that online, or whether they stay together or not, I just want her to be happy and secure in herself, strong and powerful, and like able to stand up to her husband if things truly are the way they seem to be portrayed in the show. You know what I mean? I have a stack of self-help books that I feel like are decent. I've read them at some point in my life, and I feel like they gave me something kind of like a hoorah, you are amazing, like this reminder that you are awesome. You are a badass. That's one of them. So these are the books I have for Jen Affleck. So I already mentioned You Are Badass by Jen Sincero. I have gone through this book a couple times, and it's just such a nice reminder, because I feel like we can just get really down and hard on ourselves, and just to be like, yeah, like, I'm pretty fucking cool. Like, I can do this. It's pretty uplifting. And I also like this because she acknowledges how goofy and woo-woo and silly self-help can seem. And she's like, I've done all these weird things, so you don't have to. Like, here's like top priority. Here's what you need to know. And I just really appreciated that it's self-aware enough to be like, hey, like, this is kind of strange. I get it. But, like, here's what you should try. The other book I really like, kind of along these same lines, is Buy Yourself the Fucking Lilies by Tara Schuster. Again, this is also very self-aware. And I had not read a self-help book that I felt like I connected to in this way. There's a part where she really talked about anxiety and expecting the worst and struggling in that way. And I really connected to that. You know, talking about self-sabotage, anxiety. I feel like in this space, we kind of like know what we should be doing, but sometimes it's just a nice reminder to either have it be said in a different way to give us a different perspective. Like, I just want to hype Jen up for whatever way she goes with her marriage, okay? Okay, let's chat about Mikayla. So, one thing I noticed with Mikayla, and just online and through the show, and she kind of brings it up a little bit, is how she really struggled with some chronic illnesses. And I wanted to find something that leaned into that for her. Looking online, it seems like she had some really bad eczema and potentially breast implant illness, which I feel like is becoming more spoken about and well known. But I've seen some people have pretty significant reactions to their breast implants. I wanted to lean into that because I can't imagine, I mean, you're on the internet now, you're on TV and struggling with something which might seem surface level, but your skin, I mean, that's a big deal to have problems with your skin because it's what people see, it's what you look at. When I was looking for books with chronic illness representation, I recalled Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And while I'm not a big fan of the series, I do think that first book is really fun. I feel like it does take a main character with a chronic illness. Violet is not your typical fantasy heroine. She's smaller of stature. She's not super strong. Like, she wasn't even training to be a dragon rider, and she still overcomes multiple obstacles to achieve this goal and ultimately survive. I think that would be a fun way for Mikayla to, first of all, like, check out, because while you might enjoy reading about life events that you can relate to, you also want to enjoy your books as well. And sometimes reading about things can just kind of like be a downer. So I think Fourth Wing would be really enjoyable, but it's still exploring that chronic illness in a user-friendly way where it's not too deep and like too depressing. Because we're trying to have fun when we read, you know what I mean? I think the dragon aspect is super fun. I think she would enjoy the adventure. There were some really fun moments in that book where it's just like, yeah, dragons, this is awesome. So I hope she enjoys Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Lastly, Jessi. Let's talk about Jessi. So she owns a hair salon in Utah, Jay-Z Styles. Just looking at her Instagram, I can tell she's really into health and beauty, like nails, hair, extensions, fashion, like makeup, all of it. She seems like a girly girl, and I love it. Love it. For that side of Jessi, I want to recommend Rouge by Mona Awad. I've read one other Mona Awad book. I have not gotten to Rouge yet. I would like to. It is on my own TBR. So after Belle's mom dies, she's back in Southern California dealing with like the debts her mother accrued, just wondering like who her mother was. The stakes escalate when a strange woman in red appears at the funeral offering a tantalizing clue about her mother's demise, followed by a cryptic video about a transformative spa experience. With the help of a pair of red shoes, Belle is lured into the barbed entrance of La Maison de Méduse, the same lavish culty spa to which her mother was devoted. There, Belle discovers the frightening secrets behind her and her mother's obsession with the mirror, and the great shimmering depths and demons that lurk on the other side of the glass. I just think the beauty spa aspect is really interesting. Like, it's about a beauty spa. Jessi's really into beauty. I just think that, I don't know, it just sounded like a fun time for her to read because she's into that type of stuff. So I hope she loves that. And my other recommendation for Jessi would be Educated by Tara Westover. So it's briefly mentioned in the series that she's ex-Mormon and had been for about 5 or 6 years, which was fascinating because they just kind of like glossed over it. I felt like that was actually important to know, just like the context for the show and how she interacts with the other women, right? And I feel like that just wasn't talked about. And so I watched an interview where she was talking about her life living Mormon for 25 years and how her life is now being an ex-Mormon. I think it's just a fascinating life experience, right? I just think they would have this connection reading about someone who also escaped a very intense type of family situation and religious situation as well. I don't know exactly what happened in Jessi's journey of religion, but I do think she would like Tara's story. So Educated by Tara Westover is a memoir, and her family, I think they're in Idaho, and they grew up strict survivalists. Like, they didn't go to public school. They never saw physicians. They took care of everything at home on their own. Like, she had such a different upbringing than I feel like a lot of people. She learns very quickly as a young girl that she wants to leave her home. She wants to go to school. She wants to learn, and ultimately gets her GED and goes to college and becomes very successful. But it was not an easy path for her because she had so much reprogramming essentially to do in order to kind of assimilate in the normal world. Where she's at in college, like, her classmates, a lot of them did go to public school. They did grow up in the city with access to XYZ, and she didn't. And so her journey to knowledge was very interesting, and I just think very impactful, because I came away from that book realizing how much of my own education I've taken for granted. So I just think Jessi would relate to that story of survival and getting out of something and learning and kind of being on the other side of it. But I also just recommend this book, like, hands down across the board, because it is amazing. That is it, you guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with me and putting up with this insane idea. I hope you at least found it entertaining, or maybe found some new book recommendations. Have you watched The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives? Like, let me know if you think Mom Talk will survive or not. And I will see you in the next one. Bye!